World War II. A global conflict that shook the very foundations of civilization. From the ashes of a previous global conflict, the First World War emerged a world grappling with economic depression and political instability. Adolf Hitler. My ascent to power was fueled by a potent mix of nationalism, resentment over the Treaty of Versailles, and promises of restoring Germany to its former glory. My rhetoric, laced with anti-Semitism and a thirst for territorial expansion, resonated with a populace desperate for a strong leader. The Nazi Party's grip on power tightened, their propaganda machine working tirelessly to mold public opinion and suppress dissent. The remilitarization of the Rhineland, a direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles, was met with little resistance, emboldening Hitler further. The annexation of Austria followed, a bloodless conquest that further fueled the Nazi war machine. The year 1939 marked a turning point in history, a year that saw the outbreak of a war that would forever alter the course of human events. On September 1, 1939, German forces stormed into Poland, shattering the fragile peace that had held Europe together. Winston Churchill. What began as a European conflict soon escalated into a global conflagration, drawing in nations from every corner of the world. The Axis powers, led by Germany, Italy and Japan, sought to impose their will through force, fueled by dreams of empire and racial supremacy. The early years of the war were marked by a series of stunning Axis victories. German blitzkrieg tactics, characterized by lightning-fast armored assaults and overwhelming air power, proved devastatingly effective. By the summer of 1940, much of Europe lay under the heel of the Nazi jackboot. The Battle of Britain, a pivotal moment in the early stages of World War II, showcased the courage and resilience of the British people in the face of overwhelming odds. The Luftwaffe, Germany's formidable air force, launched relentless bombing raids on British cities, targeting civilian and military infrastructure alike. Winston Churchill, the Royal Air Force, aided by a sophisticated radar system and the unwavering spirit of its pilots, fought back with tenacity and skill. The Battle of Britain marked a turning point in the war, exposing the limitations of German air power and shattering the aura of invincibility that surrounded the Nazi war machine. While the Battle of Britain raged in the skies above Europe, another theatre of war was emerging in the vast expanse of the Pacific. Japan, driven by imperial ambitions and a desire for raw materials, launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii on December 7, 1941. The attack, which crippled the US Pacific Fleet, shocked the American public and propelled the United States into the war. The Second World War was a conflict of unprecedented scale and brutality. It was a war that witnessed unimaginable atrocities, from the horrors of the Holocaust to the devastation wrought by atomic bombs. American soldier, ordinary men and women rose to meet extraordinary challenges, displaying unwavering bravery on the front lines, enduring unimaginable hardships in prisoner of war camps, and working tirelessly on the home front to support the war effort. In the aftermath of the war, the world grappled with the task of rebuilding and coming to terms with the horrors that had been unleashed. The Nuremberg trials, held to hold Nazi leaders accountable for war crimes and crimes against humanity, marked a pivotal moment in the development of international law. The United Nations was founded on the ashes of the war, a testament to the collective desire to prevent future conflicts and promote international cooperation. These stories of human triumph in the face of adversity serve as a testament to the indomitable spirit that resides within us all. Germany after World War I. A nation wounded, humiliated, forced to its knees, the Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, lay heavy upon the German people. Crushing reparations payments, loss of territory, the blame for the war placed squarely on their shoulders. Resentment festered, a breeding ground for extremist ideologies. The Weimar Republic, Germany's fledgling democracy, struggled to take root in this fertile ground of discontent. Adolf Hitler, economic woes plagued the nation. Hyperinflation crippled the economy, wiping out savings and leaving millions in poverty. The streets were filled with the unemployed, desperate for work, for hope, for someone to lead them out of the darkness. The National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party, provided an outlet for this simmering anger. Adolf Hitler. I joined the party in 1921, quickly rising through the ranks with my fiery oratory and keen political instincts. The beer hall putsch of 1923, a failed attempt by my followers and me to seize power in Munich, proved to be a turning point. Though the putsch was quickly crushed and I was imprisoned, it gave me a national platform. His trial became a media spectacle, allowing him to spread his message of hate and resentment to a wider audience. While in prison, Hitler penned Mein Kampf, My Struggle, a rambling, hate-filled manifesto outlining his twisted ideology. This book would become the blueprint for the Nazi regime, laying bare Hitler's plans for world domination and the extermination of those he deemed undesirable. The Great Depression, which began in 1929, further strengthened the Nazi Party's appeal. As unemployment soared and the Weimar Republic teetered on the brink of collapse, the Nazis exploited the economic misery, promising jobs, prosperity, and a return to greatness. Adolf Hitler. In the 1932 elections, the Nazi Party became the largest party in the Reichstag, Germany's parliament. Though we fell short of a majority, my relentless maneuvering and backroom deals culminated in my appointment as Chancellor in January 1933. Within months, I had effectively dismantled the Weimar Republic, establishing a totalitarian dictatorship. The Enabling Act, passed in March 1933, granted Hitler dictatorial powers, effectively eliminating any remaining opposition. The Gestapo, the Nazi secret police, instilled an atmosphere of fear and paranoia, silencing any dissent with brutal efficiency. With Germany firmly under his control, Hitler turned his attention towards fulfilling his expansionist ambitions. Adolf Hitler, the Wehrmacht, the German armed forces, underwent a rapid expansion, equipped with modern weapons and imbued with a dangerous ideology. In 1936, Hitler defied the Treaty of Versailles once more by remilitarizing the Rhineland, a demilitarized zone bordering France. The lack of any significant response from the Western powers emboldened Hitler, confirming his belief that they lacked the stomach for another war. The annexation of Austria in 1938, the Anschluss, was another step towards realizing my dream of a greater German Reich. German troops then marched into Austria, greeted by cheering crowds. Czechoslovakia was Hitler's next target. Adolf Hitler. The Munich Agreement, signed in September 1938 by Germany, Italy, Great Britain and France, ceded the Sudetenland to Germany in a misguided attempt to appease me. However, my appetite for conquest was insatiable. In March 1939, German troops occupied the remainder of Czechoslovakia, shattering any illusions about Hitler's desire for peace. Poland, with its strategically important location between Germany and the Soviet Union, became the next target in my crosshairs. My demands for the annexation of the Free City of Danzig and a corridor through Polish territory to East Prussia were met with resolute refusal by the Polish government, backed by guarantees from Great Britain and France. On September 1, 1939, German forces, without warning, unleashed a devastating attack on Poland, marking the beginning of World War II. Adolf Hitler. The Polish army, though bravely resisting, was no match for the Wehrmacht's superior firepower and tactics. Within weeks, Poland was crushed, its territory divided between Germany and the Soviet Union, who had signed a non-aggression pact just weeks before the war. Great Britain and France, honoring their commitments to Poland, declared war on Germany on September 3, 1939. Meanwhile, Hitler consolidated his gains in the East, preparing for the next stage of his conquest. The spring of 1940 saw the full fury of the Nazi war machine unleashed upon Western Europe. The Phony War, a period of uneasy stalemate, came to an abrupt end as German forces stormed through the Low Countries, bypassing the heavily fortified Maginot Line. Winston Churchill. The Netherlands, overwhelmed by German air power and armoured divisions, surrendered after just 5 days of fighting. Belgium, despite putting up a fierce resistance, was forced to capitulate as German forces threatened to encircle its armies. The British Expeditionary Force, sent to aid their allies, found itself facing disaster. Trapped between the advancing Germans and the English Channel, the BEF, along with remnants of the French and Belgian armies, made a desperate stand at Dunkirk. The evacuation of Dunkirk, a heroic effort involving a flotilla of warships and civilian vessels, saved over 300,000 Allied soldiers from certain capture or death. With Western Europe firmly under Nazi control, Hitler turned his attention eastward. On June 22, 1941, Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in history, commenced. Adolf Hitler, 3 million German soldiers, along with troops from Italy, Romania, Hungary and Finland, surged across the Soviet border in a three-pronged attack. Despite having the largest army in the world, the Red Army was ill-prepared for the scale and ferocity of the German onslaught. Russian soldier. The Luftwaffe, enjoying air superiority, wreaked havoc on Soviet airfields, supply lines and troop concentrations. German panzer divisions, spearheaded by the formidable Tiger and Panther tanks, sliced through the Soviet defenses, advancing hundreds of miles in the first few weeks of the campaign. The Battle of Moscow, fought in the brutal winter of 1941–42, marked a turning point in the war. Russian soldier. The Red Army, bolstered by fresh reserves from Siberia and a burning desire to defend their homeland, launched a counter-offensive that drove the Wehrmacht back from the gates of Moscow. The Eastern Front had become a meat grinder, consuming men and machines at an appalling rate. The Battle of Stalingrad, which raged for over 6 months in 1942–43, became a symbol of the brutality and human cost of the Eastern Front. The city, reduced to rubble by relentless German bombing, became the scene of some of the fiercest urban combat in history. The Soviet victory at Stalingrad, where the entire German Sixth Army was encircled and destroyed, marked a decisive turning point in the war.
From that point forward, the Red Army would be on the offensive, slowly but surely pushing the Wehrmacht back towards Germany.
The Battle of Kursk, fought in July 1943, was the largest tank battle in history, involving over 6,000 tanks and millions of soldiers.
The German offensive, intended to regain the initiative, was met with a well-prepared and determined Soviet defense.
The Red Army, now equipped with superior tanks like the T-34, inflicted heavy losses on the Wehrmacht, effectively ending any realistic hopes of a German victory in the east.
The Eastern Front had become a nightmare for the German soldier. The tide of the war had turned.
While the war raged in Europe, another conflict, equally brutal and decisive, was being fought in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean.
After the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor, Japan, driven by imperial ambitions and a belief in its own racial superiority, went on the offensive, conquering vast swaths of territory in Southeast Asia and the Pacific.
The United States, caught off guard by the Japanese attack, embarked on a long and costly campaign to defeat Japan.
The Pacific War was characterized by island hopping, a strategy of capturing key islands and using them as bases to advance closer to the Japanese home islands. The battles of Midway, Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa were among the most brutal and costly of the Pacific War.
Section 6, D-Day and the Liberation of Europe. On June 6, 1944, Operation Overlord, the largest amphibious invasion in history, commenced.
Over 150,000 Allied troops, supported by a massive naval and air armada, stormed the beaches of Normandy, France, in an audacious gamble to liberate Western Europe from Nazi occupation.
The D-Day landings, codenamed Operation Neptune, were met with fierce German resistance.
Despite heavy casualties, the Allies managed to establish a foothold on the beaches, pushing inland and securing key objectives.
The liberation of Paris in August 1944 was a joyous occasion, marking a significant turning point in the war.
The Allies, now fighting on German soil, pushed eastward, meeting up with the advancing Red Army.
The war in Europe was nearing its end. Deep in the forests of East Prussia lay the Wolf's Lair, Hitler's primary Eastern Front military headquarters. This complex served as the nerve center of the Nazi war machine from 1941 to 1944. Here, Hitler directed the course of the war, surrounded by his trusted advisors. It was a testament to Nazi engineering, a self-sufficient fortress, yet it was also a place of suffocating tension where fear and suspicion permeated the air. Military briefings dominated the day, with Hitler demanding absolute obedience. Despite the fear and paranoia at the Wolf's Lair, a small group of German officers dared to plot against Hitler. Operation Valkyrie aimed to assassinate Hitler and seize control of the government. Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg, a decorated war hero, emerged as a key figure. On July 20th, 1944, Stauffenberg attended a meeting with Hitler at the Wolf's Lair. The plan was simple: place the bomb close to Hitler and detonate it. However, fate had other plans. In a secluded mansion at Bletchley Park, a team of brilliant mathematicians and codebreakers toiled tirelessly in secrecy. Their mission to break the Enigma code, a complex encryption system used by the German military. The stakes were incredibly high, for the outcome of the war could hinge on deciphering the enemy's communications. The Enigma machine, a marvel of German engineering, scrambled messages, making them virtually unbreakable. The Germans, confident in their code, communicated freely, unaware they were being monitored. Led by Alan Turing, the codebreakers raced against time, their efforts hampered by the evolving Enigma machine. Section 4, the Holocaust, a stain on humanity. While the battles raged on land, at sea and in the air, a different kind of horror was unfolding across Nazi-occupied Europe. The Holocaust, the systematic state-sponsored persecution and murder of 6 million Jews by the Nazi regime and its collaborators, stands as a stark reminder of the depths of human depravity. Fueled by a toxic mix of anti-Semitism, racial hygiene theories, and a chillingly bureaucratic approach to mass murder, the Nazis implemented a plan to eliminate Jews from German society. What began with discriminatory laws and the forced emigration of Jews escalated into a continent-wide genocide. Jews, along with other groups deemed undesirable by the Nazis, including Roma, homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, and political opponents, were rounded up and deported to concentration camps, forced labor camps, and extermination camps. These camps, places of unimaginable cruelty and suffering, became symbols of Nazi barbarity. Section 5, Eva Braun, the woman behind the monster. Behind the imposing facade of the Nazi dictator, hidden from public view, existed a private life, shrouded in secrecy and shielded from scrutiny. Eva Braun, a young photographer's assistant, met Adolf Hitler in 1929, and their relationship, though rarely acknowledged in public, would endure until their deaths in the ruins of Berlin. Eva Braun, 23 years Hitler's junior, was initially drawn to the Führer's charisma and aura of power. She enjoyed the perks of being close to the center of power, indulging in a lavish lifestyle funded by the Nazi regime. However, as the war progressed and the true nature of Hitler's regime became undeniable, Eva Braun's loyalty to the man she called Adi remained unwavering. Life with Hitler was far from a fairy tale romance. He controlled every aspect of her life, isolating her from her family and friends, and dictating her every move. She lived a gilded cage, pampered and indulged, yet ultimately a prisoner of her own making. Section 6, the bunker, Hitler's final days. As the Red Army closed in on Berlin, the Nazi regime crumbled, its cities in ruins. Hitler retreated to the Führerbunker, a subterranean complex beneath the Reich Chancellery. Here, in the dimly lit confines, surrounded by his loyal followers, Hitler faced his final days. The atmosphere was one of suffocating tension, a toxic mix of fear and fanaticism. The air was thick with smoke and decay, a metaphor for the rotting Nazi regime. On April 29, 1945, Hitler married Eva Braun. Later, he dictated his last will, blaming the Jews for Germany's downfall. On May 8, 1945, the guns finally fell silent across Europe. Germany, its armies shattered, its cities in ruins, its people exhausted and demoralized, surrendered unconditionally to the Allied powers. The nightmare that had begun 6 long years earlier, a nightmare that had engulfed the world in a maelstrom of violence and destruction, was finally over. American Soldier Victory in Europe Day, or VE Day, as it came to be known, sparked scenes of jubilation and relief across the Allied nations. In London, crowds thronged Trafalgar Square, their cheers echoing through the bomb-damaged streets. In Paris, the Arc de Triomphe was draped in French and Allied flags, a symbol of liberation and newfound hope. Yet, amidst the celebrations, there was a profound sense of loss and sorrow. Tens of millions of people had perished in the conflict, victims of the relentless machinery of war, the barbarity of concentration camps, and the indiscriminate bombing of cities. Families were torn apart, homes and livelihoods destroyed, and entire nations lay in ruins. World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history, reshaped the global order and ushered in profound change. The war's end marked the beginning of a new chapter in international relations, dominated by the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. The United States played a pivotal role in rebuilding Europe through the Marshall Plan, revitalizing war-torn economies. Weakened by the conflict, European powers were forced to relinquish their colonies, leading to new nations and a shift in global power. Even as the Allies celebrated victory, the seeds of a new conflict, one that would cast a long shadow over the second half of the 20th century, were being sown. The wartime alliance between the Western democracies and the Soviet Union, forged in the crucible of conflict, began to unravel as ideological differences and mutual suspicions resurfaced. Winston Churchill, the Soviet Union, led by the ruthless and paranoid Joseph Stalin, sought to expand its influence in Eastern Europe, installing communist regimes in countries occupied by the Red Army. The United States, committed to containing the spread of communism, viewed Soviet expansionism with alarm, and the two superpowers locked into a tense standoff that became known as the Cold War. The Cold War, though it never escalated into a direct military confrontation between the superpowers, had a profound impact on global politics, economics, and culture. It fueled proxy wars in Korea, Vietnam, and other parts of the world, sparked an arms race that threatened humanity's very existence, and divided the world into two ideological camps. In the aftermath of World War II, the world grappled with the enormity of the crimes committed by the Nazi regime. The Holocaust, the systematic genocide of 6 million Jews, stood as a stark reminder of the depths of human depravity, a dark stain on the conscience of humanity. Determined to hold the perpetrators accountable for their actions, the Allied powers established the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg, Germany, to try Nazi leaders for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes against people. The Nuremberg trials, as they came to be known, were a landmark event in legal history, establishing the principle that individuals could be held accountable for atrocities committed during wartime, even if acting under orders from a government. The Nuremberg trials, though they could not bring back the millions who had perished, served as a powerful symbol of justice and accountability. They exposed the horrors of the Nazi regime to the world, provided a platform for survivors to share their stories, and established legal precedents that would shape international law for decades to come. World War II, though it ended more than 7 decades ago, continues to cast a long shadow over the world. Its legacy is complex and multifaceted, shaping our understanding of history, politics, technology, and the human condition. The war led to the creation of the United Nations, a global organization dedicated to promoting peace, security, and international cooperation. It also spurred advances in science and technology, including the development of the atomic bomb, which ushered in the nuclear age, a period of both unprecedented danger and technological progress. The war's impact on culture and society was equally profound. It inspired countless books, films, and works of art that explored the war's causes, consequences, and enduring human toll. It also led to social and political reforms in many countries, as people sought to create a more just and equitable world in the wake of the war's devastation. World War II stands as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the dangers of unchecked aggression. It also serves as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the courage of ordinary people. As we remember the sacrifices, it is our duty to confront hatred and build a more peaceful world. The lessons of World War II are a timeless reminder that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance.